Learning how to play through all 12 keys can be extremely frustrating, difficult, and very time-consuming. And a lot of time, we never want to do it. But in today's free lesson, we're going to teach you how to work through the 12 keys with one simple exercise. And I promise, when you do this consistently, you're going to see your knowledge and your performance increase drastically when playing tunes because you've worked through all 12 keys with this one simple exercise. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. Don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all of the amazing free jazz piano education that's available there. And we do have a membership and courses available if you're looking to take that next step in your jazz piano journey. Now, real quick, there's 2 more episodes before we reach our 300th podcast episode. Woo! So we are going to be doing a live Q&A with myself and my staff on Zoom. So you can hop on there, ask us any questions you want about jazz piano. We'll demonstrate and teach you live on Zoom, and we'll be celebrating the 300th podcast episode of Jazz Piano School. Jazz Piano School has been around for 10 years now. Crazy. If you're looking to join that live event, go to jazzpianoschool.com/newsletter. jazzpianoschool.com/newsletter. And you'll be sent the Zoom link that we're going to be used. And obviously you'll get more information and details about the live event that we're going to be hosting in just a couple weeks. So with that being said, let's dive right into this week's episode.
What's up, everybody? This is Sterling Cozza here for jazzpianoschool.com. Today I'm showing you one simple exercise that you can use to master all 12 keys. This is going to be something that you can get a lot of mileage out of, whether you're practicing chords, scales, arpeggios, just kind of improvising in general. This is going to get you familiar with all the nooks and crannies in between the different keys on the piano. And with this exercise, you'll gain a lot of fluency just improvising and playing in different keys. So let's get right into it. So some of you may already be familiar with the circle of fourths. Some people know it as the circle of fifths. It just depends what direction you're going in. For this one, we're going to be going through the circle of fourths, going in the order of descending. So if C is our first chord, our next chord is going to be F. So we're going either up a fourth, down a fifth. It depends on how you want to think of it. This is really useful, especially because keys want to resolve down. So C wants to resolve down to F. F wants to resolve down to B flat, and so on and so forths. So forths. That was not intentional. So we're going to get to know this cycle today and explore it in some ways that you maybe didn't think of before, or if you're doing it already, we're just going to go through it in a really logical way so you can get as much mileage out of this exercise as possible. So the first thing you want to do is just get the sound of the circle of fourths in your ears. I like to do that with major triads because they're complete chords and they just resolve nicely from one to the next. So we're going to go up a fourth from C major to F. And I should also mention you can get the practice materials for this lesson in the description so you can follow along. So first we have C. We're going to do these all in root position just to get the sound in our ears. Then F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, and C. So one thing I like to notice about this pattern, this is a pattern of these roots moving in fourths or descending fifths, depending on who you ask. Each time you descend a fifth or up a fourth, you are adding a flat around the circle of fourths. So C, we've got no sharps or flats. Right. Then next F, we have one flat. We have a B flat. B flat, we have 2 flats, B flat and E flat, and E flat, 3 flats, and so forth, 4 flats, 5 flats, 6 flats, Finally, we get to B. We could either have 7 flats or switch to sharps. So instead, we have 5 sharps. So if you look at a diagram of the circle of fourths, you'll see it moving in flats or sharps, depending on which direction you're going. So then it descends in sharps. We've got 5 sharps in B, 4 sharps in the key of E, 3 sharps in A, 2 sharps in D, 1 sharp in G, and then finally back to C, neutral. No sharps or flats. So we're going to get to know that pattern by playing all the major scales in each of these keys, but that's the second step. So first, we're going to play all these chords. If you did, if this was a review for you, just playing all these chords in root position, the next thing you want to do is add the left hand. So I like to practice this in time, right? So I'll get my metronome on something like 72 beats per minute. And I'll just play this in time, right? Like half notes per chord. So that's a basic exercise, just playing through the circle of fourths with major triads, left hand bass notes. You can kind of get fancy with this when you're playing in tempo. You can add some more rhythms. Start to add some little patterns there too. You can change styles, you can do more of a pop style. So we're just using these triads in root position and seeing all the different things we can add to get creative with this exercise. Anytime I'm playing an exercise, I like to still be able to make music with it, right? So that was root position. The next step in this portion of the chords exercise would be to add some inversions. So that would look something like this. We'd go from root position to the next closest inversion, which would be F in the second inversion, right? Kind of like F over C. And then the next closest one would be something like this, B flat, maybe in the first inversion, or B flat over D. Oh, how cool. We ended up back in root position. That's pretty sweet. So I would use those inversions and just kind of experiment with the same exercise in tempo once you get familiar with those inversions. There we go, and we ended up back in root position. How cool. So you can do the same thing starting from first inversion, or C over E. You can start in second inversion, C over G, and then you'll end up back in root position. So by trying all these different inversions and different variations of that sequence, you'll get really familiar with all your triads. in all 12 keys, which is really helpful for playing chord progressions, especially in songs that are in more distantly related keys, to see, like F sharp and B and all that. Once you get all these inversions in your hands and how the keys relate to one another, it can be really helpful. So that's a really useful exercise. Next, what we're going to do is get to know the ins and outs of each one of these keys by playing some major scales. So what I'll do is just go through each key with a left-hand bass note, and I'll just play the major scale up and down. Right? So we'll do that through each of the 12 keys. B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, and C. So the next step would be to do that in time. Maybe we'll bump up the metronome a little bit more. Maybe we'll go to 90 this time. So this is going to be the quarter note. We're going to play eighth notes. So it's important to be able to play all 12 of those scales in tempo. You want to look to be using the correct fingerings just to kind of get the hang of that. If you don't already have a scales routine, I would highly recommend just practicing all 12 keys with scales in two hands, getting those fingerings down. That's in the core curriculum through JPS. I believe there should be some kind of podcast available for practicing those major scales and implementing them. The next thing would be to start to blend these together. If that's a review for you, if those scales are already in your hands, already familiar, then we want to kind of just start to paint, if you will, using those colors. So I'll first just hang on each one of these keys for kind of as long as I feel like it. And it's tempting to want to use chromatic notes. I'm going to try to stick to the scale as much as I can. And then we'll go to the next key. We're on B flat. Flat, to A flat, I really want to use some chromaticism, but this is a nice exercise to just be really strict and play the scale. Kind of hear some things that you wouldn't otherwise hear. Where you're used to playing something chromatic, maybe in more of a bebop style, you got to stick to the scale. So this is pretty good exercise. any kind of diatonic patterns within the scale work really well. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to stop at D flat. But I would recommend going through each one of those keys and just getting familiar with the scale, and then exploring some different improvisation in each major scale. And that could take you, you could do that as long as you want. That could take you between 5 or 7 minutes, or you could do it for 30 if you wanted to. It just depends on how much patience you have. The next thing I would do is put the metronome on. And we're going to do 2 measures for each chord. There we go. So going through all 12 keys with the metronome, it's a little more disciplined, a little stricter because we have the tempo. So doing 2 measures each, you could do 4 measures each, and then 2 measures each. And that will add some structure to that exercise. Once you get comfortable with each of the scales, then adding the metronome can really pull things together and force you to find some connections between the keys that you maybe didn't otherwise have. So the final step for this exercise, now that we've covered the chords, we've covered the scales, we want to put it all together. So up until now, we've just been doing single notes in the left hand. Now we're going to do full 7th chords. So since we've been doing major scales, we're first going to start with major 7th chords. And now that we're using 4-part harmony, we can add a little bit more of that flavor in, that style, more of the chromaticism, kind of some bebop sounding language. Maybe some enclosures. Something like that. So we can be a little more liberal with our language. We're going to keep the metronome here. Again, just like before, you can do the same exercise, just kind of explore freely out of tempo over each one of these chords. Get familiar with each of those keys, get it in your hands. And then we're going to bring in the tempo. So I'm hearing this at about 72 to the half note. So if we multiplied that by 2, that'd be, do some math here, that'd be 144, right? So I'm hearing the 8th note, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and do da do da do da do da, something like that. And let's see, we're gonna do 2 measures each here. Let's see how this sounds. 1, 2, 1, 2. pretty quick. I wonder what it would sound like with 4 measures each. Let's try that instead. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And we can use some arpeggios too, now that we're playing 7th chords. There we go. So all 12 keys, we're doing major 7th chords here. Still improvising with major scales, but we're adding a little more chromaticism, a little more bebop. We're using some arpeggios now to get that sort of bebop, more authentic style if you're playing some more jazz-oriented music. But this technique, this exercise works for really any style of music that uses, thirds-based harmony. So that's like really any pop songs that you hear on the radio. A lot of R&B soul tunes would work well for this exercise. So now we're going to take a little more of a jazz-specific, like bebop approach, because we're going to switch from major 7 to dominant 7. Amazing how much that one note can change. So rather than playing our major 7, now we're playing some kind of dominant. You can think of it modal, you can think of sort of a mixolydian sound rooted in the key of F, because our C7 wants to go down to F. We can add some chromaticism here and play the bebop scale. And let's just see what happens. Let's do the same exercise. This time, let's do 2 measures each. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we do these quicker ones, you want to have some sort of licks that that are going to work well. We put out a PDF a while back, and it was the 251 cookbook. I think it was 101 licks that you need. Those would come in really handy here, because just having a lick that's like 1 or 2 measures long would work really well, and you can put it through all the keys. So I would do something like resolving to the 3rd because it resolves up to the root. And so on and so forth. Let's see if I can come up with another one. a minor 7th chord built off of the 2. So if we're D flat, our 2 is A flat minor, right? A flat minor 7. In the key of C, that would be G minor. That's a nice place to start a line. So this is sort of a way just to get familiar with all 12 keys. You can take licks through the 12 keys and learn phrases that work well over these chords. But to me, the real gold of this exercise is connecting all the chords together, because how often do you hear, great improvisers like Keith Jarrett or Brad Meldau, playing a line that goes through all 12 keys, be able to do that more quickly so you can move through the keys with a little more ease. So we're going to finish out with our next and final chord, which is minor 7ths. We did major 7ths, we did dominant 7ths. It would be remiss if we didn't do minor 7ths as well. You can think of these like major 7ths, just with different bass note. But we're going to use sort of like a Dorian sound for each of these minors. You can feel free to branch out if you want to use different sounds over each one of these chords, but just for now, we're going to start with the Dorian. So I'm going to just start gaining some fluency around these chords by just practicing them out of time. So you want to get just to the point where you can play lines that feel natural, right? That feel like you're kind of just speaking. In each of these keys. You can use some of that chromaticism, some of that bebop flavor. So now we're starting to move more quickly between each of the chords, right? So you want to get that fluency to where you can move between each of these chords, whether it's major, dominant, or minor. Now we're going to finish out with this in tempo, and we'll do kind of a modal vibe here. I'm going to bump the tempo up, and let's see how this sounds. So this is the circle of fourths, all minor 7th chords. 1, 2, 4 bars each. Here we go. So we started with the majors, and we continued with dominants, and we finished with minor seventh. Obviously, you could do this with multiple types of chords besides these, but these are the main three that I would recommend practicing, just because they're the most functional. So I hope that you enjoyed this exercise. Obviously, there's a lot of different directions you could go. You can practice chords, you can practice comping, you can practice left and right hand independence, you can practice improvising using major scales and accompanying yourself using your left hand. If you're not comfortable accompanying yourself, I would recommend getting like a play along, and you can program in, especially like iReal Pro, you can program in all 12 keys and just get that right hand going through all of the keys. But eventually, see if you can get both hands going at the same time, and you can get real creative with this one. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope that it helps you to master playing in all 12 keys. See you next time.
All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all of our free, amazing education, all of the free podcast blogs. We do have a membership if you're looking to take a next step forward with us, get access to over 1,000 different jazz piano videos, playbooks, mini courses, a main course curriculum, success path, and so much more. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@jazzpianoschool.com. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy practicing.